Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Zachary Green. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here today. We're going to talk about your new book, Warrior Entrepreneur, Lessons from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. And you served as a Marine, right? In the
That's
Armed Forces?
correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you still go out there today and talk before graduating classes and Parris Island and the Marine Corps. And so you're still helping people there, but you also have a warrior camp or warrior, how did you call it again? Warrior.
We call it the Academy, the Warrior Academy. So it's a combination of in-person LMS systems, masterminds, Facebook groups, you name it. It's about building a community of warriors that can accomplish pretty much anything that's in front of them.
You know, and let's talk about that word warrior, because I think some people get an icky feeling about the idea of warrior. They think warrior means just go out there and kill people, but it's a much deeper word than just making a kill. What is your definition?
So when you look at the Merriam-Webster definition, it's somebody that has struggle and conflict and overcome struggle and conflict. So my definition of a warrior is not necessarily the veteran. It could be that young mother that's working two jobs and single by herself, trying to take care of her kids. It could be someone that just served time in prison. They're trying to get back into the workforce again after learning from their mistakes. It could be that veteran. But the common thread of a warrior is someone that's had struggle and adversity, and they've grown from it rather than gotten weaker from it. And the reality is that's the choice you get to make. If you're going to let something take you down, or if you're going to look at it as a learning experience.
It's kind of that saying we've heard before, turning lemons into lemonade. It's a bad situation, but what can you take from it to make you stronger and use those lessons from that difficult experience to make you a better person and to grow from it?
Correct. And the cliches there's so many out there. You know, what doesn't kill you make you stronger, and it doesn't matter how hard you get hit, it's how fast you get back up. You can't affect what happens to you. You can only affect how you react to it. And you have that control and that power to make that decision to not be a victim and to grow from that. And those are the people I like to work with, because what I learned in my time in the Marine Corps, my time as a firefighter, and ultimately my time as an entrepreneur, the harder things got, the more that I grew.
And tell me, where in those difficult moments in your struggle, do you find that you were able to pull more creatively? What happened in those times of struggle that actually made you stronger?
Well, I think we got to go all the way back to my grade school and growing up. I had wonderful parents. I had a lot of learning disabilities. I had very severe, and still do, ADHD. Now, it's funny, they call that a learning disability when you're younger, but when you get out of school, it's called multitasking. And all of a sudden it's this great thing. They're like, oh, he's an energetic entrepreneur that can do 5 things at once. So you got to, again, it's how you want to say, do I have a disability, or no, I have an ability. But they gave me a lot of opportunities, moved me from Montessori school to private school to Catholic school to public school. And my mom spoiled me, and I get down to Parris Island, and my mom had laid my clothes out for me every day my senior year of high school on the edge of my bed. And I get down there and I'm looking around like, oh man. And I didn't do well. I really struggled early on. And I was amazed that the other recruits that were down there that grew up, some of them in West Virginia that had dirt floors, some of them in the projects of Philadelphia, New Orleans that didn't get 3 meals a day, they were flourishing. And I couldn't understand where I'd been given all these wonderful opportunities from my parents and my family, and I was doing so bad. And the reason why is they had that chance to already become warriors at a very young age. Iron sharpens iron. That rhino skin started to develop. So by the time I finished in the Marines, I had gotten to that level of warrior like they had. But it was interesting because we want to take the easy route. We want to take the route of comfort, and unfortunately, you'll never grow. And so for me specifically, that's really what I learned during my entrepreneurial journey, which, by the way, was 10 times more difficult than anything I did in the Marines or as a firefighter. It was that grit and that tenacity and that courage that I learned in those early years in the Marine Corps that really helped cause me to not only survive, but to conquer and to grow as a business person.
Well, I find that fascinating that you found being an entrepreneur harder than being a firefighter or even in the Marine. What made it more challenging being an entrepreneur?
Wow, where do we start? So I think the first thing is, just like in the military, you have a plan, but
Mhm,
nothing ever seems to work out. They always say no plan works when the first shots get shot downrange. Or
mhm.
my favorite philosopher, Mr. Mike Tyson, once said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? So
Yeah.
the reason it was harder is in the Marine Corps, we have 200 years of doctrine, 250 years of doctrine that we can learn from. We have an unbelievable team from our generals down to our captains, to our staff sergeants, to our privates.
Mhm,
There's systems in place there. As
mhm,
an entrepreneur, you're building it from scratch. Not only are you building it from scratch, you're building the boat on the ocean as it's sinking.
mm,
And because that's what's happening. I mean, you were literally spending money, making money, trying to pull everything together all at once. And the challenges for me was the more that we sold, the more that we grew, the harder it became. The more money I brought in, the less money I had, because
mm.
you start to learn about this thing called the cash conversion cycle, which is the amount of time it takes from you to get an order till you actually get paid, not sold, but paid. And it was just having to try to figure out everything on my own and do it with a team of people that weren't quite the elite team that I had in the military.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to buy the good employees that I had when I worked at corporate America. I had the bad news bears. They had a lot of heart, but not a lot of talent.
Wow. This is something that our audience is going to love to hear about because most of them are entrepreneurs. A good many of them started on the back end of their life where, they had adversity of other sorts, maybe a divorce, maybe they left corporate America, retired, and they're starting a business. And often the idea is, yay, I have this talent, or I make great blankets, or whatever it might be. And I'm just going to make a business. It seems really promising until you get out there and you start doing it. And it's not as easy as just your talent, because talent and maybe something the marketplace wants that you have is great, but all the bits that go into it, along with hiring great talent, because in order to scale, you have to have other people help you grow. Um, how to get all those bits together? How did you get people that maybe weren't the most talented, but build them up while the ship was still in the ocean, trying to keep it afloat?
So there's a great lecture by Simon Sinek, a TED Talk called
Mhm.
"Start with Your Why," and that's really what I did.
Mm,
So my why early on, I got lost in a fire. I wanted to create a product to help other firefighters not go through what I went through, and so my why was always about, let's do stuff made in America and let's do stuff that helps firefighters out, safety.
mm,
At
mm,
the end of the day, I served in the Marine Corps, and I didn't serve during combat time. I wish I would have. I didn't. But I was fighting for your freedoms to pursue happiness. And one of those
mhm,
is entrepreneurship. Literally, everyone that came to this country at one point in time came here as an entrepreneur. They didn't have a
mhm,
job waiting for them in the 1800s. They created their destiny, they created
mhm,
their jobs. So, what happens is when you get people that have that why, and as long as they match your culture, you can train them. The most
mhm,
dangerous personal organization is someone that has very high skills, but they don't match your value and culture. And the reason they're the most dangerous people is they can hold you hostage and they become a cancer in the organization, because everyone realizes how valuable they are. They realize how valuable they are. But if they don't line up to your values and your culture, they're just going to tear your company up from the inside out. And that's difficult because when you find that number one financial accountant or that salesperson and they just are destroying the connections that you have with your vendors and your customers and your
mm.
employees, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
That's the first one on people. The next one is I look at it as a three-legged stool. The stool can't stand unless you have all three of those legs. And I want your guest to write this down, because this is really something that I've taken me decades to figure out, and it's so simple. Three things you need to be a successful entrepreneur. Number one, you have to solve a problem in a unique and elegant way. The end of the day, it's not about features and benefits, it's about solving problems. And the
Mhm,
example I use is, if you're just trying to sell water, that's not a big deal. But if it's
mm,
hot out and you're in Texas like you are and you're thirsty and you start saying, hey, I have a solution to your problem, I can charge you $10 for that glass of water now,
mhm,
because I've not tried to talk about the features and benefits. I've talked about the problem that I'm solving.
mhm,
Number two, and this is an important one, you have to have an unfair competitive business advantage. Not illegal, not unethical, but it's got to
mm,
be unfair. And the reason why is we're all a bunch of Davids and the big companies are Goliaths that are out there. You're not going to be bigger than them. You're not going to be stronger than them, but you can be faster and you can be smarter than they can. And the way you do that is the way that David defeated Goliath. He used his strengths against him. Goliath's strengths were his size and his power, but that meant he was also slow and he couldn't be agile. The second thing that David did is he said, I want to use my strengths against his weaknesses, and his strengths were his speed and using a weapon that the sling that gives the advantage to someone that's farther away than someone nearby. And if you remember back to your Sunday school time, the first thing that Goliath said to David, he said, come to me. And I think you see that a lot in business, where the business are like, no, you come and you work on our things. Well, no, you don't let them dictate the business. You dictate the business. You determine how you want to go to them. So if they say, you're selling cars, and I love to use the Elon Musk example, and they say, okay, Elon, you have to go through the board of car dealers, and they decide that they're not going to want to open up a no car dealer. And if you don't do that and you don't play our game, you're not going to go. And he said, screw you, I'm going to sell direct. And then you look at Uber, well, you need to have the taxi, permit. And they said, no, we're just going to go right off the phone. So you as an entrepreneur have to dictate it, and you have to have that unfair advantage, which is that speed, is that why, is those other type of things. The third, which is the most important one, a lot of people don't realize, is you got to have really great sales, marketing, and distribution. If you've got the greatest product in the world and nobody knows about it, it's not going to help you. Matter of fact, there's some really crappy products that are out there in the market, but they got such good marketing and distribution that they do exceptionally well. Then you've got your neighbor that's got the most brilliant idea in the world, but they're so scared that someone's going to copy their idea, they don't tell anybody and they keep it away from everybody. I'm the opposite. I want you to tell everybody. And guess what? If they copy it, that's fantastic. That means you've got a good idea, because you're going to come up with version 2 or version 3 or whatever else down the road. And I'll leave you with one last example on that third one on sales, marketing, distribution. We just talked about water. A lot of people don't realize that the bottled water business is $750 billion a year in sales. Wow. When you and I were younger, we did not have bottled water. No. It was free. You drank out of the hose, you drank out of the faucet, you had a cup that you would fill up or something like that. Why is that such a big business? It's because of distribution. It's because Coca-Cola and Pepsi were the first two main ones to dial that into their distribution. And now you spend $7 for the EVN water or the Fiji water. And at the end of the day, it's the same damn water. It's water. And it's distribution and marketing. So those are the three things that I really need entrepreneurs to understand before they do anything, is get a good answer to those three questions.
Yeah. So what I'm getting is, when you're a new business owner, get clear on your why, solve a problem in a unique way. And number 2, find your unique unfair advantage. Use leverage and your strength as an entrepreneur, what you're selling, and you dictate the terms. And lastly, find a great way of PR, marketing, and distribution to get you out there. And with the water in mind, you mentioned that, what's the deal? We could just take it out of the tap or something. But the deal is they sold convenience, I believe, because people are like, hey, I can just grab this bottle of water, go on the go. I'm out, I'm hot. I just get this bottle of water. I don't need to worry about. And we become so, as we were talking earlier in the conversation, so comfortable as Americans wanting convenience. And they found a way to give us another way of convenience.
That's absolutely right. Again, marketing and distribution. You can argue if McDonald's is a better tasting cheeseburger than the one that you have at a real fancy restaurant. Well, I will argue they've spent their time on marketing and sales and distribution. I mean, at a very early age, what do they do with the kids' meal? They're hooking you at that early age of associating fun and toys with McDonald's. So that for the rest of your life, every time you get a thing of French fries, even if you're not hungry, it's like a comfort food, and it brings you back to those wonderful childhood memories. That's marketing, that's sales. And the fact that it's on every street corner, that's distribution. Yeah. That's what the entrepreneur needs to think like.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's thinking big, because you might be one business, a small sect, but you to scale it bit by bit. What's it going to look like? Having that vision. Let's talk a little bit about that. But before we talk about vision, I just want to make clear, you had mentioned that you served, but you didn't get to fight. There was not wartime. But one thing that I think people don't take into effect is that having a strong military at all times keeps for peaceful times. I think I've heard it said that when there's strong military, people say it, oh yeah, we're not going to fight you. You're good. You're strong. You have that strong fighter. It's all set. They've been working out. They got beef. No one's going to mess with you. So, and I think that's what it is by having a strong military here in the U.S. It keeps the rest of the world going, oh, we're not going to screw with them because they got their stuff together. So,
Christina, it's funny. The number one mission of the U.S. military is not to win wars. It's to deter wars. And the reason I say that, when we park one of our aircraft carrier groups right off the horizon in front of some bad actors, guess what? They shape up real fast. If you're, the bully on the playground and you realize that other kid's going to kick the what out of you, you're not going to bully them anymore. So strength. And again, we never want to have to use it. We never want to have to go out there and fight, but we will if we need to. And not to get in political discussions, but you look at after World War II, we absolutely decimated our military. Well, what happened? The Chinese roll through North Korea, and that happens. And then after what's just happened, this horrible Afghanistan withdrawal. Now we've got China flying balloons over the top of our country, like with total impunity. Yeah. And it's because they don't have that respect and that healthy fear. So a strong military actually is more peaceful than a weak military is, even though people think that if they spend more money in the defense that it's going to hurt. That's not the case.
No. And the same goes for your own personal self, because in grammar school, I was picked on a lot. I was bullied, picked on, and I was very, very, not that you know about it today, because I'm very outspoken, but I was very shy. And because I was so super shy and hidden, I got picked on a lot and sometimes beaten up. But it was in high school I started to gain my confidence and past high school that, try to mess with me in my later years of high school. I was going to tell you a piece of my mind and I didn't get picked on as much. So the same can hold true for your own personal self. If you build your stuff, your character, your strength, both physically and internally, it also makes you a stronger person not to be messed with as well.
Well, Christina, and I wish I could talk to your younger self in grammar school, because the reality is the only reason you are successful that you are today and you had that confidence was because you got picked on and bullied. Had you not got picked on and bullied, you would not have developed that rhino skin. You would not have gotten that toughness. So even though it's no fun when it happens, the warrior looks at that with adoration rather than concern, because they know that's how I'm going to get stronger. It's not fun when you're going through it, but when you come out of it, you become a lot stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now I'd like to hit on the last part, like how does someone who has a business get in touch with what is your big why? Where do I find my leverage? And how do I even begin to market it? Your day one outside the gate. Maybe let's say you make the best damn pies. Everyone wants a piece of it. They come to your house. Oh, where do I buy some of this? That's great. But there's a million pies out there. How do you differentiate yourself?
So I think the biggest mistake that entrepreneurs have is themselves. And let me explain what I mean by that. The skill set to be an entrepreneur, to be a founder, is vastly different than the skill set of a CEO or the skill set of a chief operating officer. The entrepreneur's job is the visionary. They have a big picture idea. They've got 10 different ideas at once. The job of the CEO, the job of the COO is to focus on that one idea and execute it flawlessly. And what I find that happens a lot of time is when it's just you and you're baking pies in your kitchen, you're going to be great because your love is coming through those pies. The connection you get with everybody is fantastic. But all of a sudden now we got to invest $10 million into a pie making facility. And as a result of that, we have to have a whole team of a dozen people that do nothing but just maintenance, preventive maintenance on the machines. We've got now 5 people in the finance department determining who are we paying, when are we getting paid. We've got marketing, we've got sales. Now, all of a sudden, all those skills that you had early on, they don't transfer to those other skills. And so what happens is I always tell people, for founders, you have to have a plan for the growth. And a lot of times that plan does not include you. And that's very, very difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included. It's like your baby. You take care of your baby, you nurture them, you take care of them. But if they're 30 years old and you're still fixing them breakfast and they're living down in the basement, you're not doing a really good job as a mom. But you at some point have to give them a little bit of tough love and let them go off. And that's the same thing that happens with your business. And it usually happens around year 5. Around year 5 for most businesses is when your kid turns 18 and makes that decision. Do I stay at home or do I, leave the house and get out of the nest? And you're going to fall a couple times. That's part of the learning process. So when you want to talk about companies that really can scale, it's that the founder and the entrepreneurs knows their place in that business, and that their place is the visionary, is the face of the business, is everything that happens outside of those 4 walls, and then hiring really, really good people to run the day-to-day operations and get the hell out of their way and try to avoid all the challenges and roadblocks that they may encounter.
Wow. You've just laid out so much insight right there and wisdom. I was hired several times as consultants for up and coming companies, and some would have just that problem. There probably is that 18-year-old kid going out on their own stage. And I found the most frustrating part was the founders or the owners of the company would not want their great talent. In some cases, they had fabulous talent. They had accrued. They really got some fabulous people working for them, but they didn't want to let go of their hand to let them explore and explode, because they felt like if they let go, they lose their company. And I'm like, no, it's gonna totally explode if you let it, but you have to get out of the way and let it grow. And it's hard. Like, I guess a mom letting her kid go off to college, it's hard to let your kids go.
It is. And, it's interesting because we want to, the reality is no one's going to do as good a job as you. It's your business. You create it. No one's going to take care of your kid like you, period. But they don't need to do as good as you. If you can hire 3 people and each of them do 40% of the work that you do, well, the 3 of them combined are going to do 20% more, just because the mere fact of capacity and their ability to do that. So you have to be comfortable that, they're not going to get it right and they're not going to be perfect. But if you get enough of them and you provide enough tools for them, and that why keeps them going, that's when the real things start to happen.
Well, this has been great. We could go on a lot longer, but I don't want us to leave without everyone getting their very own copy of Warrior Entrepreneur: Lessons from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. How can they get their own copy and find out more about you?
Certainly. So, of course, any place books are sold, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, you name it. But if you'd like to support your fellow entrepreneur, like the one in front of you right now, go right to my website. It's warriorentrepreneurbook.com. I'm more than happy to autograph any books that get ordered off of there. Let me know if you want me to inscribe it to somebody. And then again, that way 100% of the proceeds go back into my business. The other thing that we're doing is I'm really trying to push building this academy. And what I've done is created what's called Warrior Academy, and it's spelled with an E on the end and not a Y. And the reason why is Plato and Socrates, their academy was spelled with an E, and they wanted you to get out of the classroom and go into the garden and onto the battlefields and actually experience it in person, first person experiential leadership. And that's what the Warrior Academy is. So if you Google that, or if you put the website in, it's Warrior Academy, ACADEME.com. And through that, we have everything from workshops, and we're doing one coming up this year in Gettysburg, where it's a 3-day experience in Gettysburg, where we use a virtual reality sand table and hands-on exercises, and then go out actually onto the battlefield. We've got a very robust leadership management system that's there. We've got some individual coaching. So lots of stuff you can find from the Warrior Academy organization.
This is awesome. It's calling to mind. You've heard of the Spartan games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because life has become so easy in the Western world, here in the US mostly too. And that now people find, like we were just talking about earlier in our conversation, that people want to grow, and through, as we were saying, through the adversity, you build the strength. And so now I find especially a lot of young people going to purposely look for hard things to do to grow themselves and their character, which is awesome.
So think of this as the Spartan race for your business. We're going to have fun, but I'm going to push you, and you're going to get into areas that you may not like, but I guarantee you'll get stronger as a result of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Zachary, for coming today to Savvy Broadcasting and sharing your great gifts.
Christina, thank you for everything you do for our fellow entrepreneurs.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.